Our first plenary speaker is Artem Osypian, a mental health expert with the MH4U, Mental Health for You project, and with Veteran Hub, as well as a member of the National Psychological Association. Erica will send a raised hand when you have 1 minute left. Artem, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me well?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, then I will share my presentation right now. Do you see the presentation on screen? Yeah? No? Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, great. So, first of all, thank you for this possibility to share my knowledge. It's a great pleasure to be here now. So, the only moment I want to add, right now I'm I'm in the military. I'm in the armed forces of Ukraine, so I'm an officer of psychologist. So those information about me is before the full-scale war. That's the important moment related to my current presentation. So in this 8 minutes, I will provide you with a brief overview of the system of psychological support in Ukrainian army from my subjective point of view. So there's not an official position of government or Ministry of Defense. So it's just my observation, I can say. Also, I will not provide you with any data on PTSD or acute stress reaction among soldiers or combatants, because all this data now is outdated. It's old because it came from the period before the full-scale war. So now everything has changed, and we need new researches. And also we know that currently access to any information about the Ukrainian army, including mental health issues, is limited. So we don't have new fresh data, I can say. So first of all, let's differentiate military psychology from civilian psychology. I think we all understand the difference, and military psychologist is different from, for example, civilian trauma-focused psychotherapists who work with the veterans. So it's two different specialists, and they have different backgrounds, and they have for sure different responsibilities. In the Ukrainian army, switch that. Yeah, in the Ukrainian army, there are few positions. So there are certain positions, mostly that's officer positions, that include roles such as moral and psychological support officer. We call them MPS officers. This is quite an old school and Soviet format. In fact, they serve as a HR personnel officer of the unit in the military. So in fact, they are like HR in the army. So they are responsible for example, informing unit members, conducting official investigation, documentation, and so on. Also, there are officer psychologists like myself now, for example. This position involves addressing the psychological needs of soldier. Again, in Soviet approach, Soviet army approach, an officer psychologist was responsible for providing soldiers with propaganda and prevent suicides. That's it. Now everything changed, and currently in Ukraine, the position of officer psychology includes training of commanders and soldiers, and in self-help methods, peer-to-peer support methods, especially related to combat stress reactions. They're responsible for training, for providing individual interviews, psychological consultations, debriefing, psychological groups, decompression, and so on. The officer psychologist works with the battalion level, while, for example, combat stress control group, it's another level of help. I guess in USA they call the combat operational stress control. So it's the structural unit at the brigade level that works with various subordinate units. which have the most need of such services, psychological support, of psychological help. For example, they can come to the unit that has experienced the most psychogenic losses, or the most demotivated unit, and they can came to their location and work with them. So it's like mobile group. I can say also there is some changes in the system, and I will give you a quick brief update. So there will be no longer battalion level officer. So officer psychologist from the battalion will be transferred to psychological support groups. So that's more stationary position. So they work in points of psychological support, where different soldiers came from the front line if they need, for example, rest, or if they have some acute conditions. So why it's happening? Because we all understand that in Ukrainian army, we all understand that one officer psychologist cannot effectively work with the battalion with the amount of 7 or even 700 people or 500 people. It's impossible. Yeah, so and decompression and psychological rehabilitation is other level of help, is other category. So such people who need, for example, psychological rehabilitation, they can be referred by military psychologist or medical service of the unit to different rehab centers or clinics, mental health clinics, and decompression is a short period when usually it happens on the rotation. So when people can have time to rest, for example. So on that level, military psychology works with the soldiers when they have a rotation. So it looks like that. So it's the triangle. So the top level of triangle is like more low intense interventions, when the low intense interventions are needed, and the bottom is part is, for example, it's more high intense interventions is needed. So that's how looks like the military psychological service now looks like in army. That's something like that. So now I want to talk about gaps. That's important to understand what we can do better in this system. So gaps and problems in our system. So for sure, we understand that enemy is not only outside of the army, also it's inside the army, and this includes not only traitors, but also the persisting old Soviet approach of military psychology. Unfortunately, it still exists in army. So let me give you a small example related to issues of problems with the orders, protocols, and documentations. This problem is existing in our military psychology. We have the order that
Mr. Osypian, we're at time almost for the next speaker. If you could just wrap it up and make a final comment. We're about at time.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So that's the list of the main problems and gaps that you can see in our military psychology system, and there's the key points of my presentation. So the most important one, maybe what I wanted to share with you, is that probably the commander, not the position, not formal position of military psychology that exists in our army, but the commander with the skills in psychological help and crisis psychological intervention is the best way to solve the current problems in Ukrainian military psychology. And also commander may be the best alternative to this formal position of service psychologist. Yes, so that's the key point. Okay. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you very much.